When I was little, I didn't know that my dad was bipolar. When he was manic, he could get very, very angry, and he would fly off into rages and scream at people and start fights with people that people wouldn't normally fight with, like doctors.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. I don't really God.
He had a full psychological evaluation, and that's when we finally realized that he was bipolar.
Bipolar disorder is an imbalance in a person's brain, typically diagnosed from the age of 18 or above, and it causes people to have severe highs and severe lows. So they go from extreme highs when they're manic and everything is bright and beautiful and colorful, and then they go into the depression. People who are in their stages, they see everything in bright, vibrant colors. And then when they go into depression, their depressed stages, they see everything in black and white at that point in time.
Right before our wedding, I noticed that if little things would go wrong, his reactions were way out of proportion to what they should be. He would get so angry, he would have rages and scream and shout.
It was a little scary because I never knew what to expect from him.
But then at other times, he was wonderful. He was kind and caring.
I knew that he thought that he was like better than everybody else, that he could do no wrong, that he could like walk on water.
He pictured himself as Donald Trump. One time he even referred to himself as Jesus Christ.
But when I was little, I didn't know that was part of his sickness, and I just believed it. He had a very successful business, and as part of his illness, he really believed that he couldn't fail at anything.
He wasn't capable of running a business. He was spending all his time spending money.
He tried to expand his business and took on investors and made risky decisions because he believed that he couldn't fail.
Eventually, he lost everyone's money, including our own. The bank foreclosed on our home.
He made a lot of enemies, and some people said that he committed crimes by lying.
And so at that point, we were informed that the federal attorney was going to pursue prosecuting him for fraud.
And the thing was that while maybe some of the things he said weren't true, he believed them. And that was part of his illness.
People were threatening our lives. And so our attorney suggested that we get out of town. Eventually, he was found guilty on some counts, not guilty on others, and he was sentenced to a year in a federal prison camp. During the time that he was in the prison camp, my daughter was by now in her first year of college, and struggling to get along on her own, and I was trying to support myself and our son on my $250 a week salary as a bookkeeper. After 11 months of this, he was released. One morning, shortly after we moved to Florida, the kids had gone off to school, and he told me that he had taken an overdose of Xanax in an attempt to kill himself so that I would get his life insurance money.
And that was like the first clue I had that he didn't think properly.
I did manage to call 911. He was taken to the hospital, and that was his first exposure to a psychiatrist. He continued over the years seeing different psychiatrists for short periods of time because he always felt that he knew more than they did or that they weren't helping him. So he would go doctor shopping. And he still had not been diagnosed as bipolar because no one had seen one of his manic rages. Finally, in Florida, one of the doctors saw him go off during a session, and that's when he was finally diagnosed as bipolar.
My whole life, I realized that he had these behaviors that are typical of someone that's bipolar, but I didn't know that it was because he was bipolar until when I was a teenager. You know, there were times when maybe I didn't tell him things because I was afraid of how he would react, and it would be embarrassing.
During the years, he managed to sever his relationships with his extended family, didn't talk to his sister anymore, didn't have any contact with his best friends, and attempted to get me to sever my relationship with my parents and my sister, which is still happening now. He doesn't really have any contact with his sister. He's still in the hospital being treated for depression, and we're just hoping for the best. He doesn't always cooperate with his doctors, but hopefully they are smarter than he is and can find some basis to get him stabilized.
Even as an adult now, I guess it became more embarrassing to me as I got older and understood how his behavior was so different when he meets my friends or colleagues or even other parents of my kids' friends, that I have to explain about him beforehand so that people sort of give him an out if he does something that's not appropriate or really different.